Good evening. Welcome to the 51st OneJax Humanitarian Awards event. I'm Nicole Thomas and I serve as the president at Baptist Medical Center South. And I'm also a proud OneJax board member that has the honor of being your MC for this evening. For a brief moment, think back to 2020 with me. We were planning our annual event to occur in May, but the onset of the pandemic stopped us in our tracks. We realized the virus was going to cause more than just a few weeks of interruption, so we rescheduled the dinner for September, thinking surely we'll be able to get together by fall. But by June, we knew we weren't going to be able to gather the 1,000 of our friends under one roof in September, so we pivoted and set about creating our very first virtual event, which was streamed in early September. And here we are again, virtually recognizing and celebrating a new class of outstanding humanitarians. We were anxious to return to our typical springtime schedule, so we decided to go with one more virtual event this year. It might make you happy to know that OneJax has locked in dates to hold the dinner in person once again in the springs of 2022 and 2023, and we can't wait. One thing we have learned over the past year is that we can celebrate well, even if it is virtual. So let's do it again tonight. It's my pleasure to recognize the community stewards being honored this evening as humanitarians. You'll see and hear a lot more about them later, but allow me to introduce them before we go any further. Receiving the Gold Medallion for Lifetime Achievement is Nathaniel "Nat" Glover, former sheriff of Duval County and president emeritus from Edward Waters College. Many have called Nat a community treasure, and I couldn't agree more. Marty Goetz, the newly retired CEO at River Garden Senior Services, is being recognized with a silver medallion. Marty joined River Garden in 1978 and became CEO in 2004. After 43 years with the organization, Marty stepped down just a few weeks ago in March. Silver medallions will also be presented this evening to Robert and Margaret Hill. Robert spent his career with Acosta Sales in marketing, moving to Jacksonville in 1994 from Tennessee. He spent 7 years as the $2 billion company's CEO, retiring in 2016. Margaret has served as a community volunteer and board member, serving with several nonprofit organizations. Together, the Hills have supported several causes and projects dear to their hearts, and most notably, the Hill Breast Center at Baptist Health on the downtown campus. Let's have a big virtual round of applause for these 2021 honorees. I believe our honorees would agree that our community and our nation is dealing with parallel pandemics, not just COVID-19, but also the rise of hate, which is proving to be just as dangerous to our institutions, our civic life, and our long-term well-being. While recognizing and celebrating the good work and the impact of remarkable people doing remarkable things in our community, tonight we're also going to take a closer look at an issue OneJax has been addressing for several years: civil discourse and civility itself. Executive Director Kyle Reese will share some thoughts and surprises with you later in the program. Since our last Humanitarian Awards event in September, we've lost one member of our circle of honorees. Helene Coleman, presented with the Silver Medallion in 1987, passed away in January at the age of 95. Please hold Helene and her surviving family members in your hearts. Thank you. I hope you've had a chance to look around this virtual environment, meet up with some friends in the networking lounge or sponsor suites, or taking a look in the library, where you'll find a bunch of videos and photos from previous OneJax events. Some of these go way back, and you're invited to stay following this evening's program to check it all out. Whether this is your first time or you've attended many Humanitarian Awards events in the past, you will definitely enjoy looking through the archive. If you're on social media, you can hashtag tonight's event on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook using hashtag OneJax Humanitarians. That's hashtag OneJax Humanitarians. So thanks for gathering around your screens. It's time to sit back, have a sip and a snack, and enjoy the 2021 OneJax Humanitarian Awards. Now please welcome Michael Korn to center stage. Michael is the chair of the OneJax Board of Directors and is an appellate attorney and founder and partner in the law firm of Korn and Zimmer. Michael has a long history with OneJax and has served with distinction on several other nonprofit boards in the community. He was honored with the OneJax Silver Medallion in 2008. Michael?
Thank you, Nicole, and good evening to everyone joining us. I'm delighted to welcome you all back to the Humanitarian Awards event. In a moment, we'll be recognizing and thanking tonight's sponsors for their generous support of OneJax. But first, I want to follow up on the theme of this evening's program, which you'll be hearing more about a little later. To be effective, civil discourse is not just polite conversation that reacts in horror at vulgarity, insensitivity, and untruths. Civil discourse is focused on conversations that have a serious purpose. It is conversation that tries to find shared opportunity, not conflict. It is conversation that attempts to remove barriers, not maintain existing ones or build new ones. It is a conversation that recognizes and uses honest differences of opinions to advance creative solutions and alternatives, instead of allowing us to become paralyzed by our disagreements. Hate is nothing new. It has been undermining established societies throughout history. When legitimate opposing points of view are not constructively addressed, the potential for incivility exists, and the smallest spark can trigger turmoil, intolerance, and even violence. Practicing civility allows us to work productively with those with whom we disagree on issues where we do agree, by not letting bad feelings prevent moving forward on important shared concerns. Practicing civility allows us to focus on those areas where we do disagree by better describing the points of difference and better enabling ourselves and others to weigh the various points of argument, as well as recognizing the consequences of failing to agree. Some research studies have found that civility has been deteriorating significantly over the past 10 years. Many blame social media and a 24/7 media cycle for the sharp decline. Others point to the nature of politics and the words and actions of certain politicians or societal influencers who are intent on promoting divisiveness over unity, either for ideological reasons or even for profit. This deterioration weakens the common middle ground where we might find some way to agree enough when so many take an all-or-nothing approach, asserting, "I'm right, so you're wrong." Nothing gets accomplished. People dig in, and hate doesn't take a back seat. What we're often missing is the place in the middle, where people of good faith can join together where we do agree, while putting aside, at least for a time, the subjects about which we disagree. And that's the problem. We can't seem to agree to disagree any longer. As a result, Americans continue to express their belief that incivility is harming our country's future, our standing in the world, and our very democracy. OneJax will continue to take the lead to encourage robust civil discourse and greater civility in our community about issues large and small. We have to talk with each other. And by that, I mean talking with people who see things differently than we do. We can no longer preach only to our own choir. We have to have the difficult conversations. And most importantly, we have to listen in good faith. We can't just want things to be better. We all have to care enough to be willing to do the necessary hard work to make things better. While many sources of funding support the work of OneJax, we want to recognize and thank the funders and sponsors of tonight's event. It is their generosity and their investment in Jacksonville's people and its future that help OneJax reach out to others by the programs and services we've designed to help bring our community back together. it's my pleasure to recognize and thank the sponsors of tonight's Humanitarian Awards event. Please note that some names may appear on the slides that I don't mention because we didn't receive those sponsorships in time to include them in our pre-recording of this program. We are very grateful to all of our sponsors and donors. We first acknowledge our gratitude to the Dolores Barr Weaver Forever Fund, which gives OneJax a sizable donation for this event each year and will continue to do so in perpetuity. We appreciate the confidence shown in OneJax's ongoing work by the Forever Fund. Next, a very big thank you to our platinum sponsors, Florida Blue and Baptist Health. We can't thank you enough for your support and confidence in our work. And thank you to our gold sponsors, ViStar Credit Union, Best Bet, Pagic and Pagic, Mayo Clinic Jacksonville, FIS, UNF Foundation, and the Traeger family. I'm also happy to express our thanks to our silver sponsors, the Adecco Group Foundation, Brooks Rehabilitation, Gary and Nancy Chartrand, Hendricks Avenue Baptist Church, the Islamic Center of Northeast Florida, Miller Electric Company, Pamela Paul, Public Supermarket Charities, River Garden Senior Services, David and Linda Stein, US Able Life, Florida Combined Life, Michael Ward and Jennifer Glock, Dr. Susan Wilkinson, the Winston Family Foundation, and Ellen and Jim Wiss. Let's have an enthusiastic virtual round of applause for all of our sponsors. Please be sure to look at the digital program that was distributed a few days ago, which lists all of our sponsors. Or you can click on the program button at the top of the screen here in the theater to refer to it throughout the evening. I'm also pleased and honored to recognize our committed and dedicated board of directors. This work is not always for the faint of heart. It involves digging deep and putting the community first. The people serving on our board are philosophically and emotionally invested in the work. They know that with each program's success, we make things just that much better for someone, somewhere in Jacksonville. The names of our board and our senior advisory council are in your program. These people are the backbone of our organization, and it is my privilege to work with them. Now, please welcome Bilal Malik, the Imam at the Islamic Center of Northeast Florida, who will offer tonight's invocation.
Hello everyone, and good evening. I was asked to have this prayer for humanity. As we know, humanity is bleeding due to our wrongdoing, due to other humans. And I'm going to share with you a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In Arabic, it goes, "Unsur akhak, zaliman aw mazluma." Help out your brother, regardless your brother is oppressed or the oppressor. The companions of Prophet, they asked him, "O Prophet, we know how to help the oppressed. How come we are going to help the oppressor?" And he said, by stopping him from committing oppression. Today, we have this opportunity to stop the oppressor with our voice, with our writings, with whatever capacity we have. So I'm going to pray with you that, O Allah, O Almighty God, O the most merciful, do not treat us in accordance to what we deserve. Do not treat us in accordance to our shortcoming or in accordance to our ill characters. We seek from you, O Allah, O Almighty, to treat us in accordance to your greatness, through your ultimate blessings, through your ultimate mercy. One more dua which Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us. And he used to ask this prayer, this dua a lot. And these are starting with two attributes of Almighty. Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum. In Arabic, O the ever-living, O the one who granted us the life. Hayy. Qayyum, O the one who is running this whole life. And then he used to pray, Birahmatika nastaghith. We are begging you through your ultimate mercy. Aslih lana sha'nana kullah. Turn all of our matters of us individually or as human, collectively, make them right. All our issues, all our matters. وَلَا تَكِلْنَا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِنَا طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ. And do not let us rely, depend upon our own selves, even for a blink of eye. I'm going to add up in the prayer, may Allah, may Almighty God remove the suffering of everyone around the world who is oppressed, who is suffering. Ameen. O Allah, accept. Thank you. And peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum.
It's my pleasure at this time to ask for your attention as we recognize Nat Glover, our gold medallion for Lifetime Achievement honoree this evening. Nat had a 37-year career in law enforcement, including making history by being elected as the first African-American sheriff in Florida in more than 100 years, and the first and only African-American sheriff in the history of Jacksonville. Think of the number of young people he's inspired by showing what's possible. He served 2 terms, retiring from JSO in 2003. He agreed to step into the position of interim president at his alma mater, Edward Waters College, where he was then serving on the Board of Trustees. Less than a year later, he accepted the position on a permanent basis, which he held until retiring again in 2018. Nat's bio, along with the bios of this year's other honorees, is in the digital program sent to you earlier this week. It is also accessible by clicking on Program at the top of the screen in the theater.
When I was in the first grade, I was retained. My goodness, how do you get retained in the first grade? I can remember when people would come to our house to visit, and my parents would be introducing the kids, be calling off the names, and I would hear one of the visitors say, "Oh, is that the one that got put back?" And that was devastating to me. It made the kind of impression on me. I needed to try harder, be willing to come in earlier, and be willing to stay later, so I will never be seen as a person who's inadequate. While my term as sheriff was historic, my time at Edward Waters College was the most rewarding. I actually spent 37 and a half years in law enforcement. That required either arresting or presiding over the arresting of hundreds of people, if not thousands. When I got the opportunity to go to Edward Waters College as president, I could make a firm case that it was the epitome of redemption. Because think about it. I was at Edward Waters College for 8 years, graduated 8 classes of seniors that was going out in the world to make a contribution of tax-paying, revenue-producing, and contributing to society at a higher level. So one could make the case, I kind of balanced the books. And I don't hesitate to say, if I put my family aside, I would say one of the greatest blessings that I could have received. Being appointed as co-chair of John Payton's transition team after a heated mayoral campaign, which we opposed each other. The people whom you lead have to see you in a certain way, so they will be willing to trust you even during a time of adversity. I have to give John Payton credit for that because it was a heated campaign. As I read my comments, I said, Mr. Mayor-elect, I stand ready to help you and do what you will have me to do so we can bring this city back together. Now, I have to admit that was in my notes and it was the proper thing to say under those circumstances. He called me the next morning, met with me, and asked me about co-chairing his transition committee. Now I have to say I did remind him that I was supposed to say what I said, but he wasn't supposed to call me. So, but he did, and I think it was a highlight in my life. It would be the quintessential example of leading by example.
Nat and I became close not long after we both got elected to office, and within a short period of time, he became an honest-to-God brother. I've told Nat things I've never told anybody else, including my wife and a priest and whatever. I often say about Nat that he's probably the best human being I've ever met. He's a terrific man of faith and is a great role model. And there's just nothing important either of us do in our lives that we don't talk to the other about. We get breakfast with each other every about 3 weeks now, and often they go 2.5 hours long. And I often just kick the radio off as I'm driving home, and there's just some pearls of wisdom that I've picked up, or a story that he's never told before, and I just sort of marvel at the way he thinks. Now, what a lot of people may not know is that the guy is a world-class trash talker. You know, he's got this subdued mannerism and this courtly diplomatic demeanor, but every now and then you realize, I mean, he just took a jab at me there. I could fill the night with the little zings and dings that he kicks in. And it's all done completely in jest and because of a dear friendship. So a great man and a great friend, a great role model, and really one of the most significant figures in the history of the state of Florida. And he's right here in our hometown. Love the guy.
First, I want to thank OneJax for actually distinguishing me to this level and actually putting me in a class of people whom I have great admiration for. When I look at my life, I think back of people who were strategically placed in my life to get me from one point to another. On my phone, I have pictures of 5 people. Lou Ritter is one of them. He was the mayor at that time who actually went down to the Civil Service Administration's office, and I got a chance to take that test and become sheriff and president and all of that because he believed in me. I have the picture of Marvin Young. He was the one that took me to Lou Ritter's office when he heard my story. John Newman. He was the one who convinced me that I needed to run for sheriff. And Steve and Gary Padgett, they were the ones that said, if you want to run, we'll help you. And that's been my life, all through my life. And I have to add my family, and particularly my wife, because when they were pressing me to run for sheriff, and there were the other side who said, if you run for sheriff, these white folk are not going to vote for you. You're not going to do anything but destroy your legacy because you're going to be embarrassed after that chair breaks. I thought if I could get my wife to say she didn't want to go through that, I would have some cover. And after listening attentively, she says, well, I think you should do it too. And I said, oh my goodness. So the Lord laid it on her heart, and it took me out of the realm of doubt. I had to do it then. And look what happened.
Nat, you are indeed a community treasure, and I hope you realize what an impact you've had on the people of our city. Presenting Nat with the gold medallion is his dear friend, Steve Pagic. Congratulations to you, Nat, for this well-earned recognition, and thank you for all you've given to Jacksonville.
We are the champions, my friends.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Reese, and I'm the Executive Director of OneJax. I am so happy to have all of you here with us tonight, and I hope you're enjoying the event. In this challenging time, OneJax has stepped up to help many companies, nonprofits, schools, healthcare providers, and others with the information and insight they need while the pandemic continues. Divisiveness and inequity, along with the desire on the part of some to just do better, are motivating all organizations to look at themselves more closely and honestly than they've ever done before in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Project Breakthrough, our core program that seeks to dismantle structural and systemic racism, is opening a lot of eyes and is initiating a new and clearer understanding of the complexities involved when you try to untangle the issues of racism, even within organizations that pride themselves on their DEI policies and initiatives. As a result, many organizations are making big changes in an attempt to better level the playing field and their understanding for all employees within their companies. Our youth work continues to do remarkable, transformative programs for many of the young people in our community. Both virtual and in-person diversity education programs are being delivered to public and private middle and high school students. Last month, we held an in-person weekend version of the Sandy Miller Metrotown Institute, especially designed for middle school students. While following all of the CDC safety guidelines, these students took part in an immersive, experiential program that opened their eyes and fed their souls, working with young people in ways they can understand on issues surrounding racism, bias, sexism, sexual identity, and others is helping to create a wiser, more compassionate, and knowledgeable generation. Only good things can follow. And actually, the research bears this out. Most of us believe civility improvements start in the home, and we'd like to see parents teaching civility to their children as a way to improve the overall climate of our communities. Obviously, programs like Metrotown reinforce efforts made by parents, and I think it is incumbent upon all of us to support or get involved with this in some form or fashion. Community suppers were reintroduced in a virtual format, and the feedback received from participants has been positive and encouraging. Others are being planned, and I think even when we're able to reconvene in person later in the year or next year, we may continue to make a virtual option available periodically for those who find it difficult to physically attend. Michael has already talked a little about our theme for the evening. The erosion of civility and civil discourse in our community and country needs to be mitigated. Incivility can lead to anarchy, and the last thing we want to see is another scene like what happened at the Capitol on January the 6th. The data tells us that the majority of adults in our country believe that deterioration of civility is worse than it's ever been, and that we're balancing on the brink of disaster. But don't despair completely. There is cause for optimism. The research also indicates that the vast majority of Americans would be willing to take at least one personal action to improve civility. Most actually said that they would be willing to do several things to improve the situation, such as making an effort to be civil when treated uncivilly, encouraging family, friends, and co-workers to be civil, and voting for political leaders who behave in a civil way. I hear that people are willing to get involved. I hear that people want to be part of the solution rather than risk contributing to the problem. And that means that everyone watching this event tonight, and probably hundreds of thousands of others right here in Jacksonville, could be ready and waiting to jump in to help. Think of the collective power and energy we could harness. More good news. Many aren't waiting for an invitation. They're being proactive to promote open and honest government, transparency in the process, and making their expectations clear that citizens and elected officials are all entitled to respect for their points of view and perspectives, even when they disagree. If you will indulge me, I have a bit of surprise for you. I want to share a letter I received for this event from someone who epitomizes the word civility in every aspect of his personal and professional life. Former President Jimmy Carter. To friends of the OneJax Institute of the University of North Florida, Rosalind joins me in congratulating the 2021 Circle of Honorees. In their own way, each honoree has contributed to your organization's mission of achieving civility, understanding, and respect for all. In my campaigns, I worked hard to treat my opponent with respect, even though we maintained substantial disagreements on important issues. Never once did I refer to my opponent as anything other than my distinguished opponent or another appropriate title. As president, I worked tirelessly to bring enemies together in order to become friends. The Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt resulted in a lasting peace between these two countries. Today, I am pleased to celebrate OneJax and your theme of civility. Your youth programs teach students, as early as middle school, to overcome bullying and stereotypes so that common ground can be found with the opportunity to overcome any cultural divide. You bring people together from various faiths and worldviews to share stories, beliefs, and traditions. Your participants find that there is far more that brings us together than keeps us apart. Congratulations again to Nat Glover, Marty Goetz, and Robert and Margaret Hill on your well-deserved recognition. We send you all our warm best wishes. Sincerely, President Jimmy Carter. That, my friends, sums it up. Let's all think about it. Thank you, President Carter, for sharing your thoughts with us. It's now time to celebrate the accomplishments and impact of Marty Goetz. In his 43 years at River Garden, Marty has been the architect of the incredible growth of the organization and its services, all of which provide a direct benefit to the Jacksonville community. What makes this noteworthy is the emphasis on quality that Marty instilled into the very DNA of the agency. The care and services provided to our elderly population through River Garden's assorted programs is among the very best in the country, as demonstrated by their inclusion on a multitude of best of lists for traditional long-term care, Alzheimer's and dementia care, short-stay skilled nursing care and rehabilitation, respite care, and adult day programming. Its 40-acre campus also includes an 80-unit independent senior living facility, a Medicare-certified home health care agency, and a foundation which raises funds in support of the agency's services. River Garden is a 9-time recipient of the prestigious Governor's Gold Seal Award for Excellence in Long-Term Care. In addition, Marty's contribution to the greater community and the state of Florida through his involvement with OneJax, the Dean's Advisory Council at UNF's College of Health, Leading Age, and other groups made him a humanitarian long before he was selected to be honored here this evening.
I was planning to go to law school following college, and I had an opportunity to spend a week at a very large county-run nursing home on Long Island. My grandfather was the chief pharmacist there, and he thought I would be a wonderful healthcare administrator. He had assessed the executive as having a terrific job, walks around all day with a jacket and tie, and didn't seem to do anything. He thought that would be a perfect job for his grandson. When I joined River Garden in 1978, I had no plans on staying. My training, my graduate school training, was in hospital administration. I expected to go back into hospitals. I met the finest nursing home executive in the field, in Elliot Pilevsky, who essentially mentored me for 25 years.
Let me talk to you about Marty, my colleague of 43 years, my closest friend, my brother. Marty, the mensch, the thoroughly decent human being. Marty cares not only for humanity, but about real people and delights in their diversity. At River Garden, 350 people from the world over, of every color, speaking 15 languages with as many faith traditions, collaborate to provide outstanding care and create a caring community. Not despite their differences, but because of the full mutual respect and admiration of them. That's the culture Marty has nurtured and helped to create. A story. Several years ago, Marty was seen sifting through the dump that had recently received all of River Garden's trash. Must be some kind of jewelry, some treasure, the workers thought. No, said Marty, just some family photos discarded and then regretted after the loss of a loved one. Must be some wealthy big shot. No, said Marty, but at River Garden, everybody is a somebody.
This has been the most wonderful experience of my life. I've had the opportunity to work for a very high quality, mission-driven, not-for-profit community agency. And the only thing our board or our donors or our community has ever asked of me is to do good work, make us all proud. Things are changing, and they're changing rapidly. They have been for years. COVID-19 has accelerated that dramatically. As we shut down programs and services to protect the population on the campus, one of the first things that we had to close was our adult day program. That was very painful. Those families were dependent upon us. We are now making preparations to reopen it. We now have a pathway to returning to a more normal environment. One of the things about OneJax that so resonates to my core, it does, is that OneJax recognizes we are one community. And we are either going to be successful or not together. It can't be just about me, it needs to be about we. When I became the CEO of River Garden, the staff put a mason jar together with advice to the new CEO. There must have been 100 cards in there with advice to me. If you distilled it all down, what my colleagues here were saying to the new boss, Mr. Goetz, this is a really good place. Don't screw it up. As I prepare to step down, we are adding to that mason jar to my successor, Marty Mizrahi, and we will be presenting that to her. So to include what I got along with some additional thoughts to the staff in the field. part of what drew me to OneJax is that they care. The leadership of that organization cares. UNF's commitment to the success of OneJax cares. They make a difference. They make a palpable difference in quality of life in our community. The pandemic, COVID-19, has been the most stressful thing I've ever gone through, by far, most certainly our agency. We've made decisions that have cost us a lot of money. You make them because they're the right decisions to make. I want to congratulate Nat Glover. He is a community treasure. He is just an extraordinary human being, and I want to congratulate him on his recognition this evening. And to Robert and Margaret Hill, congratulations and thanks for everything they have done and continue to do to help make Jacksonville a community we can all be proud of. I need to thank my wife, Susan, who I met at UNF, for putting up with me, for marrying River Garden. She really did, for being my best friend. I also want to acknowledge and thank my daughters. Jennifer's a child psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins, and Amy is a psychologist at Baylor. I want to acknowledge my mom, Cecile Goetz, who's 91 years old, living at the Coves, and is probably in better health than I am. Need to acknowledge and thank Elliot Pilevsky, who chose to keep me around to see how I might develop. Everything good that I've accomplished has been as a result of his teachings, and everything that I regret, I own. River Garden has extraordinary leadership from the governance of this organization and the community that supports it. And I am deeply grateful for them, for that. We have the best staff in the field. I work with extraordinary colleagues. It has been a privilege, a personal and professional privilege that has been afforded me. We make a difference. We're in business to make a difference, just as OneJax and UNF, and we try hard to do that.
Marty, watching that video reinforces for me why I miss you so much at our in-person OneJax board meetings. Your accomplishments at River Garden reflect well on our whole community. Thank you for your profound commitment to Jacksonville's aging population. Presenting Marty with his silver medallion is his wife, Susie Goetz.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure now to introduce Sherry McGill, former president of the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund and chair of our event committee this year. Sherry is a co-founder of and contributor to Jack's Lookout, an online watchdog newsletter. Sherry was recognized with OneJax Silver Medallion in 2018. Known locally and nationally as a visionary, Sherry's hand has touched many of the organizations and initiatives in Jacksonville since the early 90s. One of her greatest accomplishments was the development of the Jessie Ball DuPont Center, a nationally recognized retrofitting and repurposing of the defunct Hayden Burns Library into a nonprofit and philanthropic center that has changed the dynamics of the nonprofit community in Jacksonville. Please welcome Sherry McGill.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you. I wish to sincerely thank you for participating in this event. Jacksonville doesn't realize, in my opinion, how lucky we are to have an organization like OneJax working on behalf of equality and inclusion in our city. For more than 50 years, OneJax has promoted respect and understanding among people of difference in our community. Whether out front on the big issues or working quietly behind the scenes to resolve a problem, OneJax has helped to bring together people from all backgrounds, cultures, faiths, and identities in order to create a better Jacksonville. Saul Brotman, a former board chair and longtime OneJax champion, says that OneJax is the city's moral compass. It sets the direction for the best outcome through its ability to determine what is right and wrong and act accordingly. During this past difficult year, OneJax was steadfast in its commitment to the community and didn't miss a beat. Following the horrific cluster of deaths of people of color this past summer, OneJax jumped into action to support the companies and organizations that reached out for help. That work continues and is being built upon. We focused a lot on civility and civil discourse this evening because really, in the end, isn't that the kind of world we wish to live in? We can overcome anything if we just pull together in the same direction. But it can't happen without you. And that help has to come from you and other like-minded people who are convinced that we can make Jacksonville a better place, a more respectful place, a more welcoming place, a more civil place. OneJax must have, and it deserves, your financial support. You're not just anyone, you're one of the people who get it. And we know because you're watching this virtual program. And even though it was mentioned earlier that we have to stop singing only to the choir, we need the rousing support of that choir in order to have the resources necessary to reach beyond ourselves to engage with the people singing out of a different songbook. We have to get to a place where people who feel differently about an issue can come together to civilly discuss how we can put our differences aside and work together for the common good. It's in everyone's best interest. I think most of you are aware, but for those of you who may not know, OneJax is an institute of UNF and enjoys many benefits from that relationship. But OneJax is responsible for raising 100% of the funding that supports its programs and services. And without your generous support and that of others, we're dead in the water. With so much at stake and so much work to be done, are you willing to take that risk? I can tell you I'm not, which is why I am a OneJax donor and will continue to be. Please join me. If it's easier for you to become a monthly donor, where a monthly contribution is charged directly to your credit card, do it. If you're a corporate sponsor and want to support a specific program or initiative, give Kyle a call and let's figure out the best way to make that happen. The point is, there are a million ways you can be a part of the groundswell, and we can work with you to figure out what makes the most sense for you. But you have to take that first step. There's a web address at the bottom of the screen you're watching. Use it to make your contribution today. It really matters. Thanks to a great event committee for a terrific effort this year. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. My congratulations to the honorees, and thank you.
Thank you, Sherry, for your leadership of the event committee and for all you do in the community. It is a true privilege for me to work with you on these big challenges. I hope everyone watching takes your words to heart and steps up to support OneJax and its important role in our community. We're now going to learn about the final honorees being recognized this evening, Robert and Margaret Hill. Originally from Tennessee, the Hills moved to Jacksonville in 1994 when the family business Robert ran was acquired by Acosta Sales and Marketing. Holding increasingly responsible positions within the company over the following years, Robert became president and COO in 2004, CEO in 2009, and vice chair in 2017. He retired in 2018. Margaret is a former editor of the Mercer University Press, and together they have been generous supporters of the United Way of Northeast Florida and Feeding Northeast Florida. They also have an interest in behavioral health and breast health and became the lead donors during the campaign to build the Hill Breast Center on the Baptist downtown campus. They are also excited about their involvement in a forthcoming behavioral health program at Wolfson Children's Hospital, called On Your Sleeves. Robert, Margaret, thank you for all that you do for this community to make things better for those in need. You are literally changing the lives of the people who access services from the organizations and programs that you support. You have made and continue to make a positive impact on the citizens of our dear Jacksonville.
I've been extremely blessed and actually grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. Had an opportunity to work with my grandfather and father in a dried bean business. And they started that business in 1927, my grandfather did. And I learned lessons that have helped me in life from that time. But what the company essentially did was they purchased dried beans from the Midwest, shipped them into Knoxville, either tractor trailer or rail cars, and then packaged them in 1 pound, 2 pound, 4 pound polyethylene bags, and then sold those to grocery stores through Appalachian area. So it was pinto beans and northerns and navies and black-eyed peas and black peas and green split peas and red kidney beans. So I know my beans. But what I was extremely grateful for during that time was the lessons about hard work and then the lessons about giving back.
I was raised by 2 educators up in Macon, Georgia. My mother taught elementary music and middle school science. She used both sides of her brain. Some of us don't. My dad was a history professor, so education was primary in my house.
One of the things that's been close to our heart is health care. And this community has wonderful health care. We are blessed with that. We've had a chance to be involved with the breast center up at Baptist Health, and more recently have had a real passion for behavioral health. We're really excited about a program that Wolfson Children's Hospital is going to be introducing in the coming weeks, and it's called On Our Sleeves. And the challenge is intervention, prevention, and wellness, and how do we get ahead of that? Oftentimes, if the first interaction's in the emergency room, it's a lot later than we would like. So we're excited to continue to give back to support healthcare in our community, and I think that's one of the things that makes Jacksonville so appealing.
Behavioral health for especially adolescents is so difficult because you feel like you're in a swamp. Hopefully what we've done and what we're doing will help that situation. I volunteered with the schools for a long time. Then my main focus became the breast center. They're doing God's work. Those people are just great. I was on the 3rd floor, which is the diagnostic floor. Anyone who has a mammogram throughout the Baptist system or other places, and they say, we want to take a second look. You come to that 3rd floor, downtown, San Marco. We were the second people that they would see. They'd register and then they'd come up and they'd see us. And my job was just to, it's okay. But that was my job, was to keep them a little calmer. You know, some people, but other people, okay, it's gonna be fine.
Hi, Margaret.
Thank you, MH.
Thank you, Margaret. We miss you.
We miss you.
Miss you, Margaret.
I think one of the things that makes Jacksonville special is a real service mentality. And you see that from nonprofits and other organizations throughout our community. A favorite quote of mine actually came from Brian Hinckley. He was an American author, education, and religious leader, lived well into his 90s. And he often wrote about service. And he said this: service is the virtue that distinguishes the great of all times in which they'll be remembered. It places a mark of nobility among its disciples. It separates 2 groups in this world: those who help and those who hinder, those who lift and those who lean, those who contribute and those that only consume. How much better is it to give than to receive? To impart sympathy, to show interest, to give encouragement, to banish fear, to build self-confidence, and to awaken others with hope. In short, to love and to show it is to render the greatest service. And there are tremendous service opportunities in our community. Some of that is driven through organizations that people may be involved in, certain of it through nonprofits. Through Feeding Northeast Florida, they serve 300 agencies, 50 schools, but there's still a lot of children that go to bed hungry in our community. And a lot of people are doing that work. But I think you find that Jacksonville is a community that embraces the opportunity, and they're not going to quit working on it till it gets better. I've been blessed to be around great leaders, and I think those leaders have certain characteristics that are going to help make them successful. And it starts with values, integrity, and trust, and teamwork. It also starts with really building a team of good people. And I've had an opportunity for over 30 years to work with individuals that were wonderful and passionate and hungry and driven. I was extremely grateful to have a chance to work with Gary Chartrand for a number of years, a mentor for me, but one who takes the issues and opportunities from education to civil discourse to building a better community at the very core. So I'm grateful and consider him a wonderful friend and mentor. Gary and I have had a wonderful time working together, and we've had a lot of fun along the way. Don't forget the fun.
Robert and Margaret Hill are thoughtful, quiet givers of their time, talent, and treasure, and our community is better off because of their generosity. They are people of strong faith and believe deeply in supporting organizations that help make people's lives better. That is the guiding principle that drives their giving. When people are struggling or suffering, you can count on Robert and Margaret Hill to be there for them. They are a wonderful example to follow, and Nancy and I are proud to call them friends.
Having a community united and having them focused on the right things is so important. And OneJax brings us together like no other organization. And I think that's really important to have in our community. If it weren't for OneJax, who would it be? I think the work that is going on around racism, civil discourse, civility is so important. But we've got to have the stick-to-itiveness to make sure those values around civility and racism and civil discourse are a part of what makes this city special.
Robert and Margaret both have a long list of organizations with which they've been involved. Be sure to read their full bios in your program. Heartfelt thank you to everyone watching for joining us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed learning about some remarkable people doing great work in our community. And I hope you've learned how and why it's incumbent upon all of us to play a part in saving civility. None of us can do it alone. I have hope and I have faith, and I know we can create a better Jacksonville when we're all in it together. Please stay well and healthy. Continue to wear your mask, wash your hands, and get the vaccine when it's your turn. It will make all the difference in the long run. Good night.